The podcast you're about to hear involves true stories, which may contain graphic content that is not suitable for children. Listener's discretion is advised. This is Esoteric Oddities.
Hey guys!
We're back.
We're in our 60th day of quarantine. Is it 60 days?
I think it's been more than that.
I think it's like 75.
I think it's like 65 as we record this. But who knows? I've lost track of time.
I've lost count. I only know because someone else is keeping track that I work with. And like I know that I've been quarantining since they've been quarantining. So like that's how I'm keeping track.
I think my first official day of quarantine was St. Patrick's Day. Like that's when like they kicked us out of work. They were just like, you need to get your shit and you need to go home.
Yeah, it was like March 13th and it was like everyone stop what you're doing. But there's a pandemic like all of a sudden.
I'm just like ready to return to normal life, but at the same time, like how is that going to go?
I don't think we're going to be able to go to a concert until like 2021.
Oh, probably not, because it's going to be, that's way too much.
Yeah.
That's way too much. Because I'm looking at, like, a lot of the Jersey Shores.
They're, like, only
opening
the beach.
Yeah, but even at the beach, like, I understand there's this argument going on, and it might just be on Facebook. And again, this is one of those things where you can, like, pull up two like fucking web pages and see like the pros of wearing a face mask and the cons of wearing a face mask, or
right,
like
it's like one of
maybe
those
not
things.
maybe not the cons, but maybe like, does it actually work? Is it actually effective? But here's my thing is like, all these people are going to the beach. Nobody's wearing a face mask, which I mean, so I feel like at right now, people are far enough apart that it's not a huge deal. And imagine getting like a suntan line, like with a tan line of that fucking.
Yes, that would be so funny.
That's gonna be my ass. But like Memorial Day, we have a shore house that nobody's at, so it's like not like we're gonna be going and seeing a whole bunch of people, but like we might go down for Memorial Day just to go to the house to get out of this one. Yeah, and it would just be the people I live with because it's my brother and my cousin. But I was talking to Mark about this. They say like. The face masks don't really do much. I mean, people should be fucking wearing them because whether you think they do something or not, it's kind of like a visual cue of like, hey, like I know we want to all get back to normal life, but let's like pay attention that there's shit going on here.
Yeah, and it's like when you don't wear one, you look like very lax and like you don't care.
And it's so easy to just like kind of forget when you're going about your day and just like it's not in the forefront of your mind because it's become the norm for everybody. So it's
and like that's scary
in a sense.
And of course, like I have a job that involves like meetings with literally more than 10 people, so I have no idea what like when I'm gonna be able to go back because like our meetings are usually from like 50 to 200 to 400 people. So in one space, in one room. So I don't even know how that's gonna work, and like it's just so scary to think about.
It is. It's so weird how our new norm is like everybody's just kind of like used to it.
Yeah, and like it's just like I feel like there's really no like leadership happening, and there's no like, hey, this person has been unemployed for 4 months and they haven't received one payment. Like, what are we gonna do for that? There's like nothing of that nature happening. I know people who have been unemployed since literally April 4th and they have yet to receive anything from unemployment. So like. It's just all. I just feel like
the
it's
fucking
so
backlog
shitty.
is insane because this is like the highest unemployment rate.
Yeah, and like I get it, like
seen.
it's just so many people and so many things, but like, isn't there a plan? Like, and isn't there like anything to make sure these people are getting their money? Because like it's just like almost like they want people to like fail and get behind on their rent. So like, you know, like of course no one can evict you, but like those are still payments that you're gonna have to make up in the coming months. Like that's like a scary thing to think about.
Yeah, sidebar to that, mentioning like paying rent. So my lease is up and my landlord had emailed us when this whole thing started happening. And I think the email was basically like, hey, wanted to know what you want to do on the upcoming year. Your lease ends in May. We just wanted to check on you, make sure you're good. And I've told you how my landlord is like a little, I hear from him like once a year.
Right.
Or the one time he just walked into my house without notifying any of us.
Yeah, like a weirdo.
That was weird.
Mm-hmm.
But I emailed him back and I told him, I was just like, hey, yeah, we want to renew the lease because I personally, I love this house. I was like, wasn't going to say no to moving somewhere else. But with the pandemic, like there's so much uncertainty that at the time I was just like, yeah, we're going to renew for another year. Give us another year of figuring out what the fuck's going on. At least I have some stability and I don't have to worry about moving during this situation. Cause that just like, that sets me over the edge. So I emailed him that. And, well, there's two landlords. They're married. And I emailed them both and I CC'd everybody who lives here on it, and we didn't hear anything back, and a month passed. So I emailed them again.
From him,
and I was
when
just like, hey,
when you were like, I'm gonna renew, he never said anything?
No. He didn't say a single thing. So I emailed him again a little over a month later, and I was just like, hey, just double checking, wanted to see like if you guys are okay, because my concern was like, I was like, oh shit, is something like happening to them? Are they good? Are they okay?
Right.
So I was like, hey, just want to make sure you guys are okay. Let me know what we can do on our part to help you guys with the process of renewal, which should be as easy as sending over an electronic signature, because that's what we've done for the past 4 years. Mm-hmm. But we haven't heard anything still, and it's been almost 2 months since that first email.
Oh shit, he said, I'm going through it. Do you have like any records? Like, is he alive? Is he well?
I don't know. He changed his number, so we can't really get a hold of him. So it's like, hello. So there's that. So I don't really know. My lease is up. I'm technically like paying month to month now.
That's like, I just like don't understand how he's just like, I guess, I don't know. It would just be like, it's weird to not be like,
it is weird.
Hey, yeah, I'm just going to let you guys do month to month for right now. Like, I understand what's going on. You know, it's just like.
Yeah, he hasn't, neither has she. Neither of them have said anything. After I followed up too. I don't know. And
that makes you like scared. Like, am I supposed to be here? Am I documented to be here? Like,
well, in our written lease, we do. If we didn't, I don't know. Everybody listening is like, what the fuck? I don't give a shit. On the lease that we signed, it had gotten updated 2 years ago. I don't know if there was a law change or something, but basically, like, if we go over the allotted amount of time, like over the year that we signed, we go month to month. And if they want us to move out, they have to give us 60 days notice. And if we want to move out, we have to give 30 days notice.
Oh, that's good.
So legally, even though we're over the time, he would have to give us 60 days notice. I don't know, but I don't know what's going on with that. But some weird shit's been going on. Can I tell you?
Oh, yes, you could tell me.
Okay. You know how you and I kind of have sometimes coincidences are like, that's a weird coincidence, or like psychic moments. Mm-hmm. We've talked about it before, but I've had so many in a short amount of time that I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what? Okay, so let me give you an example.
Like, it'll go like a whole week with you being like coincidence after coincidence. And I'm like, is this a sign?
Exactly. And I haven't told you a lot of these because I wanted to wait for the fucking podcast. So funny. This all happened within a week. There I am sitting watching Vanderpump Rules as I do every Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at this one guy who kind of is getting on my nerves, but he looks really familiar. So I said to my brother, I was just like, you know who he looks like? He looks like Steve. Now, Steve was our old neighbor when we lived in Chicago. He lived across the street, and he was older. Funny. He was our friend's dad. Oh, and I have not talked to this man in years. I have not seen him since I was 16. Mm-hmm. We literally we haven't talked, nothing. And there's no reason for us to, I mean, it would just be so random that we would start talking. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So I mentioned that, and Chris is like, oh my God, that does like low-key really look like Steve. Like, if that was Steve's son, I would totally believe it because they really do look familiar. My brother was like, oh my God, like whatever happened to him, I whatever.
Yeah.
So then the next day I wake up and I randomly click on a podcast and I'm listening to like the history of beekeeping. And it's just something I would never normally listen to. But I was like, I'm going to learn something today, bitch. I'm going to educate. So I learned, it was like an hour long, a little bit less than an hour. And wow, it was actually fascinating. And then I receive a message on Facebook. You want to guess who it's from?
Steve.
It's from fucking Steve. And I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? On? I literally just had like I just spoke your name and now you're DMing me.
Do you think that Facebook heard you say it out loud and then you popped up in his people you may know?
No, because he said to me, he was just like, hey, Jonathan, we were just, while in quarantine, we were just looking at old home videos and you popped up in a lot of them because I was really good friends with his two sons.
Mm-hmm.
Because we literally lived across the street from each other.
Right.
And he's like, I just wanted to like see how you're doing. And I was like, this sounds really weird, but I literally was just talking about you last night. And I basically like told him what happened. And I asked what he's been up to. And he said, they moved from Chicago to the countryside. And guess what they do, bitch?
What do they do? Beekeep.
They are beekeepers.
Why is life like this?
Okay, I was like, what the actual fuck? But it doesn't stop there because then the next morning, I had this song in my head. And it happens to be a song that my friend Carrie Dayton, I don't know if y'all listening, watch her. She's a YouTuber.
Yes, watch her.
But we're friends. We've been friends for a couple years. And it was stuck in my head. I haven't heard the song in fucking forever. It was a song she used to have as her outro, like years ago. Yeah, I hadn't heard the song in a while, hadn't even thought about it. And I haven't really talked to Carrie in about like a month. And I literally wake up, that song's in my head, I roll over and I check my phone and I have 3 text messages from Carrie.
That's so funny.
3.
Uh-huh.
I was like, what the fuck? I don't even think I told her because I was like, she's going to think I'm crazy.
Right.
But all she was saying was that the girl... I feel like
there's only certain people that you can like do that to.
Yeah. I feel like she would... I think I was just like, I don't feel like explaining this.
Yeah. Like, I was just listening to that song and then I rolled over. It's just like too much.
And then so that night, I think this was on Friday, we were outside and I was like, I want to listen to roller disco music. And I want that to be like what we're doing.
Do you listen to that often even?
No. Couldn't tell you the last time I even thought about roller disco. So we listened to roller disco the whole night. The next day, we're on a Zoom call with my parents, and I mentioned to my dad the weird things that had happened between Steve and Carrie, and then he asked what we did last night, and I said, we were listening to roller disco music, and he was like, oh, that's really weird, because last night, your mother was asking about this roller place where we used to live, and I'm like, God. Bro, what the fuck?
That's so funny. It's just like those little coincidences that keep happening.
I'm just like, can I just like get the Powerball numbers or something? Because there's really no weight being held in roller discos.
Or like beekeeping. I don't need to know about that.
Like, please, something. I need Powerball numbers. And then something else weird that happened. Well, 2 more. But I think definitely Instagram obviously listens to the shit that we say.
Have you ever like thought about something in your head, not even said it out loud, and you got an ad for it? That's been happening to me.
Yeah, with our fucking cruise conversation where you, me, and Kiko were talking about going on a cruise and I got something in the mail.
Uh-huh. Like what?
But that was like, we were chatting via text message and I didn't look a single thing up. Anyway, the cat was getting sick. She threw up twice.
Oh, no.
And I was like worried and I was like, oh my God, like what's going on? The one day I could tell she wasn't feeling good. Mm-hmm. And she's fine now, but I'm pretty sure it's because her food bowl is too low for her because she's been laying while she eats and she used to never do that. And I know that for cats, like the way that they eat their food.
Yeah, they would never lay down.
Well, her mouth is lower than her stomach if she has to lean over. So I was mentioning this to Mark and I were talking about it. Well, then I go on Instagram and this has to be because they're listening. It has to be because I didn't look up a single thing. The very first ad that was for me was an anti-vomit cat food dish.
My God, stop. I can't.
I said, bitch. Right. And I bought it. I did. I fell for it too.
I love that. I mean, sometimes they do. I feel like sometimes it's helpful.
That one was helpful, but it's like I had a verbal conversation and I'm like a little concerned.
Yeah, that's true. Because it's like, I know y'all are listening. But on Facebook, there's like this thing and it like says, it'll like record your apps and like things like that. And,
yeah, it's collecting all the cookies to see, like, put them in a cookie jar and sell it to you.
Yeah, so it, like, collects apps, and it'll, like even, like, down to your PNC app, it, like, records that.
Yikes.
Uh-huh.
At, like, face value, I worked for a company before that. We actually had a meeting to learn about, like, all of that shit and the devices that track you when you Google something. So it's kind of not as scary as people would think. But then again, like if someone were to get a hold of that information, like where is that information going? That's what scares me.
Yeah.
But also that's why I didn't want an Alexa in my house.
You're right. I took mine out and I got a Google Assistant. Same thing, but a little less annoying.
Okay, Google.
Because but how many times do you say Google, but you never say, you know what? You never say, okay, Google.
Right.
Mine just went off.
Uh-oh.
That's why I was like, you never say, you know what?
Oh. I didn't put that together. So sorry.
Have you ever been to Ricketts Glen State Park? It's in Benton, PA.
Where the fuck is Benton? Benton?
Benton. BENTON. No. It's like, to be honest, well, it's an hour away from like what my hometown would have been, but there's like 8 waterfalls, big and small, and it's just like really pretty. And I couldn't figure out if the path was like the path that like you take is like man-made or like not. I guess since it's a state park, it is. It's just so weird. They had like little like rock stairs and things like that, and I love shit like that. And it looked like a pixie fairyland with like all the moss and the green.
Oh, I love a pixie fairyland. Mm-hmm. It's nice to like get out and fucking disconnect and
yeah,
shit,
exactly. It? You have no service when you get into the woods, so like it's really nice.
It's nice, but also fucking terrifying. That's
Wait,
scary.
I was terrified. I was terrified that like my mom or like Na was gonna text me and be like, "Hey," and then get super worried that like I wasn't responding because
there's a track record of that happening.
Exactly.
Well, that one time was scary because it did look like your phone was
in a lake.
Yeah, and your mom called me. It was just like, "Where's Sarah?" And we couldn't get a hold of you. So that's understandably scary. Once we can like see each other in person, we got to go back to the Devil's Kettle or whatever. That's from Jennifer's Body, whatever it's called, the one in Philly.
Yes, the Devil's Kettle.
Was it the Devil's Kettle? No, I think that's from Jennifer's Body. I think it was called the Devil's Pool or something.
Ours is the Devil's Pool.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But that was nice. There were a lot of fucking people there though. Like this morning I went on a walk. Uh-huh. I had to.
Yeah.
I had to get the fuck out of my house.
It's been very crucial to me to be, like, outside because that's the only thing that, like, is saving me at this point.
I feel that. Also, I've been literally, this quarantine 15 has turned into the quarantine 35 extra pounds.
Same.
And, like, I just need to I gotta get out and fucking walk. I need to do it. So I did 3 miles this morning and it was, like, nice. I listened to
the music.
I listened to a meditation app. And it was so nice that I just
that's really nice. I never thought about doing that.
Yeah, it was really nice. There were a little too many people out for my comfort,
Always.
But like it's an open enough path that it was
like
fine.
6 feet.
Oh my God, I have to tell you,
I've
been making in my quesadilla maker. I know this is the riveting content everybody's been waiting for, but I told y'all in the last episode that my friend Meg, thank you so much, Meg, drunkenly ordered us a quesadilla maker and didn't think I would use it as much as I have, but bitch, it makes Belgian waffles. I've been making Belgian waffles.
Cute. I love that.
And
we love
make
waffles.
Eggs. And you can put cheese in the eggs.
Yeah, like you can make like an omelet thing. Who knew?
Who knew? Not me. I didn't know I needed a quesadilla maker in my life, but apparently I do. I just wanted you to know that.
I feel like I need
Belgian
one now.
Waffles. You should get one. Oh my God, it's so good. I'll
see if... Is the Belgian waffles then like just round and not like fluffy?
Oh, they're fluffy, bitch. Because the way that the quesadilla maker like kind of cuts the tortilla into little perfect slices. It doesn't actually cut it, but it like makes that toasted impression. Mm-hmm. So it kind of just takes on the shape of like a circle, like kind of like a pizza.
Oh, okay, like a little pizza action.
Yeah, and I figured out if you do exactly 2 minutes for the Belgian waffles.
Oh, 2 minutes. That's
so
that's the key
no
here.
No more, no less.
Okay.
No more, no less.
I feel that.
Okay. Well, that's enough random talk from us. Do you want to... This is Esoteric Oddities, guys.
Guys, this is Esoteric Oddities. We always forget to say it, but...
You were supposed to go first. You were supposed to go first last time, but somebody was hanging a fucking monument on the wall.
Yeah. All right, let's do this.
Let's do it.
So Ian Brady was born in Glasgow, Scotland as Ian Duncan Stewart on January 2nd, 1938. His mother was Margaret Stewart. She was unmarried. She was a waitress. The identity of Brady's father really hasn't been released at all. His mother said that he was a reporter working for the Glasgow newspaper, but he passed away 3 months before Brady was born. But we're not really sure like how true that is.
Oh, we're not sure if that was really his father.
Yeah. Okay. Brady had little support. I mean, like his mother, she had little support, and after a few months, she was forced to give her son to the care of Mary and John Sloan. They were a local couple with 4 children of their own. And Brady took their name and became known as Ian Sloan. His mother continued to visit him throughout his childhood. Various people have stated that he tortured animals, but that was something that he never said to be true. At age 9, he visited Loch Lomond with his family, where he discovered his love for the outdoors. And a few months later, the family moved to a new home. It was on a big estate, so he was able to like enjoy the outdoors. And they said that this gave him like a little bit of clarity with his like troubled mind. Mm-hmm. He was accepted into this really good school called Shawlands Academy, and it was for above average students. So he was smart, but once he went to that academy, the Shawlands, his behavior got worse. And as a teenager, he was in jail twice, juvenile court, for breaking into houses.
Oh, don't do that. Don't break into people's houses.
Right. He left school at the age of 15, and he took a job as a waiter at Harland and Wolff Shipyard. But 9 months later, he began working as a butcher. He had a girlfriend named Evelyn Grant, but their relationship ended when he threatened her with a flick knife after she went to a dance with another boy. Yeah, so, like, this is how he is.
Oh, no.
Brady appeared in court for his 17th birthday, and he was placed on probation on the condition that he lived with his mother. Now, it doesn't say, like, I'm assuming that it's the mother that took him over, not his actual mother.
Not his birth mom?
Yes.
That took him over.
So Ian Brady, he moves to Manchester, and within a year, he was caught with a sack full of lead seals that he had stolen and was trying to smuggle out of the market so that he could basically sell them for a higher profit.
Lead what?
It's lead seals.
What is that?
It's like a tube type thing.
Oh. He was selling it because it was lead, I guess. But how would he fucking sell them? It's not like he can go on Etsy and like do it discreetly.
I know.
He has to be like a merchant and like sell it down by the river.
But anyway, so because he got caught smuggling these lead seals, he went to jail for 3 months. Because he was still under 18, that he was only sentenced to 2 years in training. So basically that means community service.
But this would have been his like third offense, yeah? Because he went to juvie twice for breaking into places, and now he's doing bad boy things and stealing shit.
They give him so many chances. So after he was discovered for being drunk on alcohol that he brewed, he was moved to an actual jail this time because he basically was on parole doing community service, and then he basically got his 4th offense. Are we at here?
Yeah, I guess.
And he was released on November 14th, 1957, and he returned to Manchester.
And he's still not even 18 yet?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
This time he took a laboring job, which he hated, and he was basically fired because he was very combative with the boss.
I have struggles with authority too. But
okay.
Like, let's get it together here, my guy.
My Leo moon and Scorpio rising be like.
I hate you.
It's so funny. I actually guessed someone's moon today. It's actually Na's friend Chris. He's very like life of the party. He's an Aquarius. But he's very like life of the party. So I was like, do you have like any Leo placements? I was like, you really give me like life of the party vibes. I was like, I'm thinking like Leo moon because your moon is like how you present yourself. He was like, I actually have a Leo moon. And I was like, that's funny because I have an Aquarius moon and you're an Aquarius.
Haha.
So it was just like so funny to see the opposites of that.
He's your inverse. He's your soulmate. Please don't be friends with him. I need you as my friend. Do you remember when people would be like, you can't be her best friend. She's my best friend.
You're my best friend. Yeah, that's just
okay,
so
well,
crazy.
Chloe and me went to summer camp together.
And you didn't
we
go,
did a lot
so
of
like
inside
that's when we
jokes.
got really close.
Yeah, we were in cabin Zeta Beta Pi. Ever heard of it? You probably haven't because you weren't there.
You weren't there. You had to be there.
Had to be there. So anyway, me and Chloe go way back. Sorry, I don't even know how we got here.
That's okay. We're I feel like we're storytellers, but
yep, and we sometimes fall off that track of storytelling.
Yeah. So Ian decides that he wants to better himself, and he obtained basically books on how to bookkeep from a local public library, which his parents
That's
were
so
like...
meta. A book on how to bookkeep?
Right? But his parents were so astonished, they say, that he was studying alone in his room for hours, because they're like, who is this?
Right. Like, what are you actually reading in there?
Actually, and I put this in the wrong place, but his mom married someone named Patrick Brady, and for some reason he took over that name.
Wait, is it his adoptive mother?
No.
Right? Married someone?
I think it's...
his birth mother?
I think so. It says his mother, she moved to Manchester, and she married an Irish fruit merchant named Patrick Brady, and that's where Ian took his last name.
I don't know. My friend did that when she was in middle school. I guess she was in middle school and she wasn't about to be 18.
Yeah, that's like, it's just like maybe he just didn't like his last name at that point. We never know.
I don't know. Well, actually, I don't know, because you're saying that you put that in the wrong place. So that I'm assuming that happened probably earlier in his life. So maybe he didn't have a choice. Because if he's under the age of 18, he might not have a choice of what his last name is. At least that's what happened to my friend.
True.
Anyway, Rose.
In January 1959, Ian Brady applied for and was offered a clerical job at Millard's, a wholesale chemical distribution company. He was quiet, punctual, but short-tempered, which we knew. He read books including Teach Yourself German, as well as works on Nazis. So pay attention to that, because that's going to be a huge thing in the story.
Great.
He also rode a motorcycle. Are we surprised?
Oh, a bad boy.
Right. Okay, now we're going to skip to a different person. Now, this is Myra Hindley's, her early life. I say so much because I smoke weed and I don't know words.
That's okay. Come through.
It's literally me like finding words in my head instead of like pausing. I say because I'm like, I'm thinking. It's working.
Well, also because when you do your research, you were telling me earlier that you do like bullet points and then kind of weave the story together organically. I script mine out. That's why mine sounds like a robot script.
I felt like I was too robotic while doing that, because I was like, and then he went to...
Beep boop.
I think I'm dyslexic. Myra Hindley... Myra Hindley was born in Crumpsall on July 23rd, 1942, and she was raised in Gorton, which was a neighboring town where Ian was raised. Her parents were a part of the working class, and they were named Nellie and Bob Hindley. Her dad was an alcoholic, and he beat her regularly when she was a young child. The family house was in poor condition, and Hindley was forced to sleep in a single bed next to her parents' double bed. Their living situation basically got worse when Hindley's sister, Maureen, was born, and she was born August 1946, and about a year later, when Hindley was 5, she was sent to live with her grandmother because they didn't have space for her. So, like, she feels like she's pushed out by her younger sibling.
So there's like a little bit of that mirroring in Ian's childhood too.
Exactly.
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
Besides Ian being like adopted out and being kind of a bad boy, did he have any other like issues? Did his parents have issues that we know about?
It doesn't really say, because I feel like no one really got the story of his mom because she gave him away so young.
But what about his adoptive mom?
It doesn't really like go into
so he might have just been like a bad person. I'm only thinking because I just always look at this because it's so intriguing to me, is again
like
nature
where
versus
did they
nurture,
get that
because it's like right, because for her it's looking like she has the nurture side where like things are happening to her dad beating her when he's drunk, and her basically like her little sister is born and there's no more room for her, versus him where it's like he was adopted, which can mentally like, but a lot of people get adopted, but he just started doing bad boy things, so that seems to be like a nature
right test. Exactly. And I think like that's the big thing of this story. I think that comes out a lot, actually. It's so funny that you said that.
It's like Sid and Nancy, but kind of reversed and less drugs.
Right. So Hindley's father, he served in the Second World War, so World War II, and he was stationed in North Africa, and he was like said to be a hard man, and he expected his daughter to be equally tough, and he taught her to fight and insisted that she stick up for herself. When Hindley was 8, a local boy scratched her cheeks and drew blood. She basically burst into tears and ran to her father, and her father basically threatened her with a leather belt if she didn't retaliate against the boy.
Oh, okay. So this is what we're doing?
Yeah, so she found the boy. She knocked him out with a series of punches.
Oh, shit.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I know she does bad shit down the line, but, I mean, good for her.
And, like, she was, like, not only used to violence in her home, but she was also rewarded for it outside. So, like, remember that going into it.
Not good. I retract my statement. Not good for her.
Right.
Not good for her.
So, one of Hindley's closest friends was 13-year-old Michael Higgins, who lived nearby. In 1957, he invited her to go swimming with friends at basically like a reservoir, but instead Hindley went out with another friend, and Higgins actually drowned that day. And because Hindley was such a good swimmer, she was so upset and she blamed herself for basically his death.
Oh, no. Well, that's tragic. Here's another tragic thing to pile on top of it.
He had the funeral at St. Francis Monastery. Sorry, Charlie's in here. Basically, Hindley was very attracted to the Catholic Church, and that's where she was baptized was where her friend had her funeral. So I think that really had an effect on her, and she basically like didn't want to go back because it gave her like, I think she was triggered.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And that's basically when she like dropped her faith.
Mm-hmm.
Hindley's first job was a junior clerk at a local electrician engineering firm. She ran errands, made tea, and typed on a typewriter, and she was well liked. At 17, she became engaged after a short relationship, but called it off several months later after deciding the man she was with was immature and unable to provide her with the life she wanted.
Y'all are 17. You're both immature. Shut the fuck up.
Right. She then took a job at Bratby, and which is like another engineering company. She was fired after 6 months because she didn't show up for work.
Oh, see, that's the thing about work. You gotta
be
up.
there. She also liked to take jujitsu. Is that how you say it? Hello? But she found that the people that she was with didn't want to train her because she was too slow, like with punching and stuff. This is where it gets real. In January 1961, Hindley's 18-year-old. She joined Millward's as a typist. This is where she meets Ian Brady, and she becomes infatuated with him.
Wait, where did they meet?
At Millward's. It's like another engineering company, but she's a typist at this point.
Okay. So they're meeting at work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So she becomes infatuated with Ian Brady. She knows that he's a criminal, but she doesn't care. She begins writing in her diary about him, and even though she's dating other guys, she really likes Ian Brady.
Why? It has to be the bad boy appeal because he looks creepy. He's a creepy looking motherfucker.
Well, yeah, and she's like, you know.
Yeah, say no more.
She even wrote in her diary that the first time that they spoke was July 27th.
Oh, she got dates. She remembers that day.
Right. Over the next few months, she continues to make journal entries about Ian Brady, but she grew too much infatuated with him.
Some would call it obsessed.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that because I think that's just like a...
Well, I'll say it. I'll take the fall for it. She's fucking obsessed with
obsessed. Him. So he finally asked her out on December 22nd, and he asked her to a movie. Now, it says that they saw Judgment at Nuremberg, but Myra recalls it as being King of Kings.
I love the specificity you're giving us. Like, now they may have seen this as it's reported. However, we're going to footnote this.
That it's King of Kings, okay? So they had really regular dates. They went to the movies. They usually watched X-rated films and then went back to Hindley's house to drink German wine.
And probably practice what they saw at the movies.
Okay.
Rattle the old bones.
So at this point, Brady starts giving her his Nazi books.
Okay.
And she begins to basically become obsessed with, like, the ideal Aryan perfection. She bleached her hair blonde.
Mm-hmm. She sure as fuck did.
She was concerned about a lot of aspects of Brady's character, but she basically decided to ignore it, regardless of the fact that a childhood friend of hers mentioned that she'd been drugged by Ian Brady.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And she asked her friend her friend wrote it in a letter, and she asked her friend to destroy the letter a few months later.
That's scary shit.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, do you think she found an interest in these Nazi-related books, and that's the reason why she dyed her hair? Or do you think it was her infatuation with Ian, and he had the infatuation with that, so she wanted to match that perception of, like, Aryan Nation dream girl?
I think she became so obsessed with him that she felt like she wasn't good enough, and, like, since he was into all these things, she felt like she had to look like that too.
Wrong on many levels,
right.
But I'm going to let you continue to tell this story of fuckery.
Hindley begins to change her appearance. She's wearing clothes that are considered risque. She's wearing high boots, short skirts, leather jackets, and
God forbid a tube top.
Literally. They regularly went to the library borrowing books on philosophy as well as crime and torture.
Oh, you know what? When you... I was going to say, you know what? At least they're trying to open up their minds to philosophy and steer clear of the Nazi books. But then, you know, they're going to check out the books on torture. Now, can I ask what their fucking public library looks like where they've got a torture book section? Like, what?
Right. She, and they would plan bank robberies, but they would never, like, actually, like, go through with it. So she befriends this guy named George Clitheroe. He's the president of a rifle club, and on several occasions, the two visited local shooting ranges, and they always shot with a .22 rifle. Like I said, the robbery plans, they got all these guns because they were like, yeah, we're gonna rob this place, we need all these guns, and we need to start, like... but Hindley also had a bad temper as well, and she was not good at shooting.
Oh, great.
So after that whole, let's rob a bank, they became interested in photography.
As you just switch up your interests so easily like that, you know? Failed robbery attempts often lead to photography obsessions. It's in the nature of the art.
So Brady had this camera. It was called a box brownie, and he used it to take photographs of Myra and her dog, Puppet. And he basically got like a dark room and stuff like that, and they took photographs of each other. And he often talked about the book Compulsion. Basically, it's Leopold and Loeb's case.
Oh.
Yeah.
We remember them.
Mm-hmm. By June 1963, Brady moved in with Hindley and at her grandmother's house. And on July 12th, 1963, this is when they get their first victim.
Can I ask how old they are at this time?
It didn't really, like, keep up with her age.
Okay, wait, hold on. I'm going to do the math really quick because I know what they looked like at the time of this, and they looked like they were pushing 50.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. What year did you just say this was?
This is 1963. And Myra was born in 1942.
Okay, so they're 21 looking like they're 40.
Literally.
Like filing away papers and shit. What possessed them to kill? They just were like, hey, let's, skip the bank robbing and let's take someone's life.
Right. In 1963, Hindley, her grandmother, and Brady, they were rehoused as a part of the post-war slum clearances in Manchester. Brady and Hindley became friendly with Patricia Hodge, an 11-year-old girl who lived a couple blocks away. Why are you friends with this 12-year-old girl?
Yeah, let's not do that when we're in our 20s.
Okay. So, on July 12th, 1963... this is when Brady told Hindley that he wanted to create the perfect murder. So after work, he instructed her to drive a borrowed van around while he followed on his motorcycle. Then this is when they spotted their next victim. They were driving down Gorton Lane, and Brady saw a young girl, and he signaled Hindley, who did not stop because she recognized the girl as an 8-year-old neighbor. Brady signaled Hindley to another girl, which was 16-year-old Pauline Reed. She was... a schoolmate. Yeah, of Maureen's sister. So Hindley was like, hey, you want to ride?
Now, I wonder why, because, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but the first girl that they saw, she was 8, and they didn't want to do it because she was too young, or because she was because she was their neighbor? Because then you go, oh, I don't want to do that girl because she's the neighbor of my mom, but then you're like, oh, here's a 16-year-old girl who goes to school with my sister.
Yeah, what's the difference?
Right.
I agree. I think they were I guess they were just like, this girl looks fine.
Let's do it.
Once Reed was in the van, Hindley asked her basically to go to this place called Saddleworth Moor for a glove that she lost. Like, I'm not going to this random place with you to find your glove, ma'am.
Yeah, I ain't got that to do.
So, you know, she agreed, and they drove there. And when Brady arrived on his motorcycle, Hindley told Reed that he would be helping with the search. And I would be like, okay, this is sketchy because you didn't tell me this before.
Right? Like, why do you need me? Like, why don't you just drop me off where I need to go?
Right. So Hindley, she later claimed that she waited in the van while Brady took Reed into the moor. So, like, I'm going to stop here and say this story is, like, this case was so complicated because it was literally he said, she said from the moment that this started happening. So, Hindley later claims that she waited in the van while Brady took Reed into the moor. Brady returned alone after 30 minutes and took Hindley to the spot where Reed's body was. Her clothes were not attached, and she was decapitated.
Jesus Christ.
She had 2 cuts to the throat, including a 4-inch incision across her voice box. When Hindley asked Brady whether he raped Reed, Brady replied, "Of course I did."
Fucking monster.
Mm-hmm. In the early evening of November 23rd, 1963, at a market in Ashton-under-Lyne, these things are called such crazy things that I'm like, why?
I don't know. It's a foreign thing, I guess.
Right. So Brady and Hindley offered this 12-year-old boy, John Kilbride, a ride home. He was saying his parents might worry that he was out so late. So they promised him a bottle of sherry.
Oh, come on, little boy. We're not offering you candy. We'll give you
alcohol. So once Kilbride was inside, she was driving a Ford at the time. Brady said that they would have to make a detour to their home for the alcohol. In the route, he suggested another detour, this time to search for a glove that Hindley had lost in the moor. When they researched the moor, Brady took Kilbride with him while Hindley waited in the car. Brady also sexually assaulted John Kilbride and tried to slit his throat with a 6-inch blade before strangling him with the shoelace.
I thought I know about this case, but I thought that they had just shot their victims. This is
No, they
worse.
Went in. So this is the next victim. This is Keith Bennett. Early in the evening of June 16th, 1964, Hindley again asked 12-year-old Keith Bennett, who was on his way to his grandmother's house, to help look for some boxes in her minivan. After he helped her, she said that she would basically drive him home, so Brady was in the back of the van. She drove to Saddleworth Moor, and Brady went off with Bennett, supposedly looking for the lost glove. After about 30 minutes, Brady returned alone, carrying a gun that he had hidden there earlier, and in response to Hindley's questions, said that he had sexually assaulted Bennett and strangled him with a piece of string.
Now, this is happening within, like, a year, like, because they started... I don't remember when you said their first one, like the summer of 63.
Yeah.
And now we're entering the summer of 64. So these murders
So
were
the next one, so it started in July of 1963, and then they did it again November 1963. And then Keith Bennett was 1964.
The summer of 64.
Yeah.
And then, so all of these cases were just like going as unsolved?
I'll get into it a little bit, but basically they couldn't figure out what was happening to these kids. It was like they were searching for them and not finding anything.
They were just missing children. Okay. I don't know if you're going to get to this. I'm sure you will, but were the bodies just kept there at the moor?
Yeah, but they were buried, but yeah.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So the next victim is Leslie Ann Downey. Brady and Hindley visited a park on December 26, 1964, and noticed that 10-year-old Leslie Ann Down was alone. They were carrying shopping bags and asked her for help taking them in their car and then to their house. So this is a trigger warning because this is like, I'm not saying that the other people didn't get it worse, but this is like, they really took it to another level here. So when they get to the house, Downey was undressed, she was gagged, and forced to pose for photographs before being raped and killed. She was strangled with a piece of string. Hindley says that she went to fill a bath for Downey and found her dead when she returned. This is like what she states later on.
Right. So she knew about the rape in the photos of a 10-year-old girl. And she's like, I went to fill a bath. I didn't know he would kill her.
Right.
Like, what did you think was going to happen?
Exactly.
Y'all have a track record.
He's been sexually assaulting all these kids, ma'am. Brady claims that Hindley killed her. Downey, and the following morning, Brady and Hindley drove Downey's body to the moor and buried her naked with her clothes at her feet in a shallow grave.
That's fucked up. But now this is like the first time that they killed someone in-house and then drove them to the moor.
Exactly, instead of just taking them right there.
Yeah.
So this is the last victim, and then I'm going to get into the early investigation. On the evening of October 6, 1965, Hindley drove Brady to Manchester Central Railway Station, where she waited outside in the car while she selected the victim. After a few minutes, Brady reappeared with a 17-year-old boy named Edward Evans, and he knew Hindley's sister as well. So they drive them back to their house, and they offered him a bottle of wine. It said that at some point, Brady sent Hindley to get David Smith, which is the husband of Hindley's younger sister, Maureen.
To go get him?
Yeah. I don't know why. So basically, they wanted him to be in on it.
Oh.
So the Hindley family didn't approve of Maureen's marriage to Smith because he had several criminal convictions.
Okay, so he's thinking that, like, okay, this
criminal
other guy
who
he
help
probably
us.
knows, he probably knows from Maureen he can help. Okay.
And I guess that the family didn't like him, but Brady and him became good friends.
Yeah, I see they have some things in common.
They have some things in common, yeah. So when Hindley returned with Smith and told him to wait outside for a signal, which was with a flashlight, when the signal came, Smith knocked on the door and was met by Brady, who asked if he could come in for bottles of wine and let him in the kitchen, saying that he was going to collect the wine. But Smith later told the police. I waited about a minute or two, then suddenly I heard a scream, and it sounded like a woman, really high-pitched, and then screams carried on, one after another. They were really loud. Then I heard Myra shout, "Dave, help him," very loud. When I ran in, I just stood in the living room and saw a young boy. He was laying with his head and his shoulders on the couch, and his legs were on the floor. He was facing upwards, and Ian was standing over him, facing him with his legs on either side of his legs. He was still screaming, and Ian had a hatchet in his hand. He was holding it above his head, and he hit him on the left side of the head. And then Smith watched Brady basically strangle him with an electrical cord.
Oh my god. So I'm assuming Smith had no idea that his sister-in-law and her boy toy were doing this type of shit?
Hell no. They just, I guess they basically... It doesn't really, state how they got him involved, but I'm assuming maybe that they just assumed that he would be down in on it. Yeah.
Oh my god. See, I thought that they were going to be using their guns, and then you were talking about how they were at the shooting range and they were learning how to use them.
Yeah, and you're thinking, yeah, these people are just gonna...
Not their weapon of choice.
No. Yeah, so Smith agrees to return after with his van to transport Evan's body to the car before disposing it on the moors. He arrived home around 3 a.m. and asked his wife to make a cup of tea.
His wife being...
Maureen.
Her sister.
Yeah, but he ended up drinking and vomiting and telling her what he had saw. So at 6:15, he waited for daylight and armed himself with a screwdriver and a bread knife in case Brady was planning to basically kill him too. And then that's when Smith called the police from a phone booth, and he was picked up by a police car and taken to Hyde Police Station, where he told officers what he witnessed that night. Superintendent Bob Talbot, which was the police that Smith gave his statement to, he basically went to the house, and he had a detective with him. He was wearing a bread deliveries man overall on top of his uniform, and he asked for Myra Hindley at the back door and if her husband was home. When she denied that she had a husband or that a man was in the house, that's when Talbot identified himself. And Hindley led him into the living room where Brady was laying on the couch writing his employer about an ankle injury that he had got.
Yeah, after killing someone.
Exactly. So, the guy is like, I'm here because I heard about an act of violence involving guns that was reported. So he's basically lying and saying, hey, this happened and I'm just here to see what's going on. Hindley, of course, denied that there was anything going on in the house, and she allowed the police to look around. When the police asked for a key to the locked spare bedroom, Hindley said that it was her workplace. But after the police offered to take her to get the key, Brady told her to basically give them the key. That's when they arrested Brady on suspicion of the murder.
Wait, what was in the room?
Hold up. Ugh. So this is the initial investigation. So this is how it all really, like, pans out. So although Hindley was not initially arrested, she demanded to go with Brady to the police station, and she took her dog. She refused to make any statement about Evans's death beyond claiming that it had been an accident, and was allowed to go home on the condition that she returned to the police station the next day. Over the next 4 days, Hindley visited her. She went to work. She asked to be let out early so that she can go to the police station. And then later she basically says to be let go so she can file for unemployment. Police started searching the house, and they found an exercise book with the name John Kilbride, which made them suspect that Brady and Hindley had been involved in the disappearance of other young kids. Brady basically told the police that he and Evans had fought, but insisted that he and Smith had murdered Evans and that Hindley had only done what she had been told. Smith said that Brady had asked him to return anything incriminating, such as the torture books and stuff. Which Brady then packed into suitcases.
Yeah, like, what the fuck's up with that?
Basically, they found the luggage, and inside one of the cases were costume, notes, photographs, and negatives. Some were pornographics. They were the ones taken of Leslie Ann Downey, naked and a scarf tied across her mouth.
And police already knew that she was missing.
Yeah. And then there was a 16-minute audio tape of a girl screaming and pleading for help.
Oh my God.
And these were shown to Downey's mother, and she had to say that those were her daughter. The pictures were her daughter, and the recording was her daughter. So, like, imagine, like, that, God. Like, as a parent.
To have to do that. Holy shit. That's awful.
So now this is where that 12-year-old Pat Hodges comes in that they became friends with. Basically, the police were questioning him, and he, on several occasions, were taken to Saddleworth Moor by Brady and Hindley and was able to point out their favorite sites. Police immediately began searching the area, and on October 16th, they found an arm bone, basically, like, protruding from, like, a mound. They thought at first that it was Kilbride's, but the next day it was identified as Leslie Ann Downey, whose body was like still visibly identifiable, and her mother was able to identify the clothes that she was wearing that day.
As if her mother hasn't fucking seen enough.
Right. Among the photographs in the suitcase were also a number of pictures taken at the moor, and Smith had told the police that Brady was basically boasting about photographic proof of multiple murders, and officers were struck by Brady's decision to remove the innocent landscapes from the house. So basically they were like, why would you take these pictures and then assume that no one's going to find them?
It's fucking narcissistic.
Right. So on October 21st, they found the badly decomposed body of Kilbride, which can only be identified by the clothes that he was wearing. And that same day, Artie, being held for the murders of Evans, Brady, and Hindley, appeared at the magistrate's court, and they were charged with Downey's murder. And all these, like, were charged separately. So the investigating officers suspected Brady and Hindley of murdering other missing children and teenagers who had disappeared from the area in and around Manchester over the previous few years. And in search of the bodies continued after the discovery of Kilbride's body, with the winter settling in, and they called off the search in November. So Bradley basically admitted to taking photographs of Downey, because obviously you can't fucking say that you didn't.
Yeah, when you have the negatives and everything's right there.
Yeah, but he insisted that she was brought to their house by two men who took her away, and by December 2nd, 1965, Brady had been charged with the murders of Kilbride, Downey, and Evans, and Hindley was charged with the murders of Downey, Evans, and she was an accessory to murder for Kilbride. The prosecutor's opening statement was held in camera rather than in an open court, and the defense asked for a similar stipulation but was refused. So many of the photographs taken by Brady and Hindley on the moor featured Hindley's dog Puppet, sometimes as a puppy. To help date the photographs, detectives had basically a vet examine the dog to determine his age, and examination required basically amnesia, which the dog never recovered from. And Hindley was pissed, and she accused the police of murdering her dog.
Oh, get over your fucking self.
Right. On December 16th, 1986, Hindley made the first of 2 visits to assist the police search of the moor. So now Hindley's basically, she's trying to get her sentence cut. So she's like, I'll help you find these bodies.
Right. If you cut, like, I'm just trying to get a break here.
Right. So police closed off all the roads onto the moor, and they patrolled, and there was like 200 officers involved. Some were armed. Hindley left at 4:30 a.m. and flew to the moor by helicopter from an airfield, and then was driven and walked around the area until 3 p.m. She had difficulty connecting what she saw to her memories, and she was apparently very nervous of the helicopter flying overhead. The press described the visit as a fiasco and a publicity stunt. Basically, she just was there to basically be there.
Love the attention too.
Right.
I mean, she knows that this ship is sinking, so
yeah.
Why not get famous?
Right. So then on December 19th, David Smith, he's 38 at this point, he helps basically try to find the bodies at the moor as well.
Oh, so I guess he was involved in something.
I think they took him there once to get rid of a body, because that's what he was supposed to do. And then that's when he went back and was like, I just saw this crazy thing, I need to tell the police.
I just don't understand how Myra's over here like, I can't remember where I've placed it. I put the body somewhere, but I can't remember. Like, go fuck yourself. You killed my dog.
Yeah, she just cares about her dog. She doesn't care about anything else. On February 10th, 1987, she confessed to the involvement in all 5 murders, but this wasn't made public for more than a month. The tape recording of her statement was over 17 hours long, and they basically said it was a performance, and basically she just told everyone what she felt like they wanted to know. So police then visited Brady in prison again and told him that Hindley's confessed, and he refused to believe that. Once they basically played the recording for him, he basically is now saying that she killed Reed, and she was in charge.
Right, so this is the he
That's
said, she said that you
were talking
kind of
so
about.
long, because I didn't know, is this really important to include?
Mm-hmm.
Once presented with some of the details that Hindley had provided of Reed's abduction, Brady decided that he was prepared to confess, but under one condition: that he immediately afterwards be given the means to commit suicide. So in April of 1987, news of Hindley's confession became public, and basically the media was saying that it was mob emotion.
Somebody honking their horn.
You already know.
Knock it off.
So basically, they're going back and forth between the moor trying to find these bodies. Brady wrote a letter to BBC reporter giving some sketchy details of the 5 additional deaths that he claimed to be involved in. This is just a random thing that he decided to say.
Why not?
Mm-hmm.
Lots of publicity surrounding this case.
Of course, the couple is found guilty.
Right. I feel like I just cannot get a grip on what is going on in either of their heads.
The story was a mindfuck for me, because I was like, what's actually happening here? So following his conviction, Brady was moved to Durham prison, where he asked to live in solitary confinement. He spent basically 19 years in mainstream prisons before he was diagnosed as a psychopath in November 1985, and he was sent to basically a high security prison. And he made it clear that he never wants to be released. The trial judge had recommended that his life sentence should mean life. I don't know why they would ever give him what he wanted.
Right, but at the same time, he doesn't want to be released, and I mean, I don't know if they could do the death penalty, because this isn't in America. So
August 2001, it is said that Brady was supposed to earn $12,000 for a book that he wrote about serial killers, but he made no mentions of his crimes in the book. It was the Yorkshire Ripper and things like that he wrote about.
That's fucking interesting, because again, I don't know how it is outside of America, but there's the laws here where you can't make money off of the crimes that you committed.
Oh, that makes sense.
But he's not. His name is but that's not here. That I'm saying it's interesting because he has already sensationalized his name, And he's not technically writing about himself. He's writing about the topic of something horrible he had done, which would be murder.
Oh,
but he's writing about other murderers. So if you walked into a bookstore and you saw this book about murder written from the perspective of a murderer, you know that shit's going to sell like hotcakes for some fucked up reason.
Right.
But that's interesting that I don't know if he was looking for a loophole.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was looking for a loophole because, again, I don't know if that's a law where he is at. Because in America, I wonder how that would go over, because he wouldn't be making money on his own crime, but he would be making money based on the sensationalism that his name has gained from the crimes that he committed. But then that kind of makes sense of why he had been fine with like spewing out all of the information. And why she was putting on an act is like,
and like she didn't even really know who she was, because she took over who she thought he wanted her to be. So I feel like after this, she was kind of like, okay, where do I go from here? Brady, he dies on May 15th, 2017. It is said that he once wrote a letter to Bennett's mother complaining about his psychiatric care. And this is why I decided to not include a lot of the he said, she said, because at the end of the day, y'all are murderers. And y'all are disgusting. Like, there's a lot
child
more to the
murderers
story.
At that.
Yeah,
child serial killers.
Literally. And there's a lot more to the story with like what she said and what he said happened, but I didn't feel the need to include that because at the end of the day, like, y'all killed children.
Right. There was more to their Moore story.
Exactly. So Myra, she also got the death sentence, but while in jail, she tried to become a first-class citizen by getting a degree in humanities and studying different languages. She rediscovered her faith and continued to say that her crimes will never, basically, they're not going to be a recollection of who she is as a person. But I'm like, they are.
Okay, well, they are. Well, they are, honeybee. And you can go sniff my asshole. You would be so lucky.
She even started a campaign for an early release. Again, didn't go into that because I felt like she didn't deserve it anyway.
Right, fuck your campaign.
And she passed on November 19th, 2001 due to health complications. So they both fought hard for early release, and they both, like, it's weird because they were both, like, kind of smart in, like, how they did it. Like, he wrote a book, she did a campaign, but like I said, I didn't feel the need to really go into that because, like, I've been saying,
fuck them.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what y'all said or who did what to who. Y'all still accompanied each other in murdering children, and that is the story of Ian Brady and Myra Hindley, aka the Morris murders.
I hate that story. I mean, you did good, you covered it well, but fuck them.
If you were to like research this, you'd find a lot more, but it's all he said, she said. It's some bullshit,
and we don't have fucking time for that. They don't deserve the airtime.
No, I don't think they deserve that.
The reason I know this story is, do you know about the Sonic Youth?
I think so.
So the Sonic Youth is a band, and their LP cover, and this is how I remember the story so well, is a picture. If you have your computer, just look up Sonic Youth LP cover, and it's a drawing of Myra's sister, Maureen, on the left smoking a cigarette, and David Smith on the right, the guy who you were saying, it's her husband, who like told him. That's a picture of them in the back seat of a car shortly after David had turned them in, or at least gotten the police involved.
That's so crazy.
So that's when I heard, when you said you were covering the story, that's what like popped into my head.
I didn't know that it was depicted to be the sister and Smith.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And it's like, I know it's fucked up, but it looks like a badass picture.
It does, yeah.
David Smith, I'm very skeptical of that.
Yeah, I'm skeptical of him, but he ended up doing the right thing, because if he never said anything, this whole case would have never unraveled.
That's so like, true.
That's the only thing that he has ever done good in his life.
That's true. I mean, who knows if this would have got solved if they didn't say anything.
Right. And I also
I'm not like blowing smoke, but
yeah, a small inkling that maybe Maureen was like, if you don't fess up, like, I'm leaving you. And he was probably like, I need my wife.
I need my wife. She could have been doing, I don't know. She could have been on an,
True.
I don't know. Okay. I would say this is a lighthearted case, but it's not. So this is the case of Septic Tank Sam. Have you heard of this?
No.
All right.
That would definitely be a name I would remember.
Yes. And that's interesting you said that. Thank you for saying that. We'll come back to that. So we are in Toefield, I believe it's pronounced, Alberta, Canada, on April 13th, 1977, when Charlie and Mavis McLeod take a trip to their old farm. So the couple had actually owned the farm previously, but since had abandoned it for reasons I couldn't find out. And another point of information that I couldn't find out was the amount of time between when they abandoned the farm. Sorry, I was listening to a podcast about the Haunted Mansion. When they abandoned the farm versus when they took their trip to the farm. Basically, the reason they were taking their trip back to the abandoned farm was to retrieve a septic tank pump that they knew was still on the property, but they ended up finding something much worse. So when they opened the lid, Mavis noticed a gray wool sock and a brown shoe bobbing in the murky water of the septic tank. When they leaned in to retrieve the shoe, they realized that there was a leg attached and someone was still wearing it.
Like, imagine that. You find a shoe and you're like, oh, a shoe, and like it's like a leg.
Oh no, fuck that. That's horrifying.
I would not be okay, right?
So Charlie immediately dials the police from a working phone line, which I can only imagine isn't on the property because it's abandoned.
Right.
So Charlie calls the police. Police arrive to the scene and they start using ice cream pails to scoop some of the gooey liquid from the septic tank because they saw that the body was decomposed, and if they were to pull it all the way, they needed to get rid of some of the water to be able to pull it up out of the water and keep whatever pieces intact. So they discovered the body of a man submerged headfirst down into the 1.8 meter deep septic tank, which is about 6 feet. Based on the decomposition of the body, they assumed that the man had been submerged in the septic tank for several months.
Ooh.
So an autopsy concluded that the man had suffered from some kind of illness during his formative childhood years, but it also painted a horrible picture of what had happened to him in his final moments. Investigators described his death as, quote, one of the most vindictive and sadistic crimes, end quote, that they had ever encountered, and this unidentified man had been known as Septic Tank Sam. So I'm going to get into what had happened to him and why it was so bad, but this kind of bounces back to, it sounds very disrespectful to call like a John Doe Septic Tank Sam.
Right.
But I mean, at the end of the day, he was found in a septic tank. They don't know who he is. To me, I do think it's disrespectful. But the police wanted to find out who this was. And later down the line, they were like, I mean, it's a sensationalized name that you're going to remember. So like you said, you would remember if you heard of Septic Tank Sam. Mm-hmm. So that's why they were trying to differentiate it from the long list of John Does. So that's kind of why they were calling him that. So I'm just going to call him Sam for now.
Okay.
So let's get back to the autopsy and the fucked up things that it revealed. So according to the autopsy, he had been tied up and beaten while his body had been repeatedly burned using a small butane blowtorch and cigarettes. Mm-hmm. You know, the fucking little butane blowtorch?
Yeah.
He was burned with that. He had also been sexually mutilated before he was finally shot in the head and the chest. He was rolled up in a yellow bed sheet tied with nylon rope and dumped headfirst into the septic tank, which had been partially filled with water. They're not sure, but they do believe he survived the shootings and he was alive when he was dumped into the septic tank. Mm-hmm. So the killer or killers then dumped quicklime into the tank along with the body. Shit. So quicklime
wouldn't like cut through skin?
So it's technically called calcium oxide, and it's commonly known as quicklime or burnt lime, and it's a widely used chemical compound. Historically, it's been believed that quicklime would be effective in accelerating the decomposition of corpses. However, some scientific studies have shown that that is not true. However, it can eradicate the stench of decomposition. So it is assumed that the quicklime was thrown in with the body in order to dissolve the body and speed up the rate of decomposition. However, what the killers did not know is that when quicklime is combined with water, only a small degree of superficial burning will occur on human skin. Actually, here's what it actually ended up doing. It actually ended up doing the opposite because it kind of dries out. It pulls the moisture from the body and it dries it out. It does burn a bit of it, but it dries it out, basically kind of preserving the body tissue and keeping it kind of intact. But still, the remains were so badly mutilated because, again, he had been burned before he was killed, like with a blowtorch and cigarettes. And then they had put this quicklime in there. So I don't quite know what that looks like, and I don't really want to know what that looks like. It took an Edmonton medical examiner months to determine whether the remains were even male or female. So when they pulled Septic Tank Sam, when they pulled Sam out of there, they didn't really know if it was a man or a woman. But due to the advanced decomposition, he was rendered, as I said, unrecognizable. It was later determined that he was most likely of Aboriginal heritage, somewhere between 20 years old and 40 years old.
Wow.
He had brown hair and he stood about 5 feet 5 inches tall, maybe 5 feet 7 inches tall. Investigators were going to have a very difficult time identifying Sam and therefore potentially identifying his killer. Due to the decomposition, his fingerprints could not be lifted. He didn't have fingerprints. So again, as I said before, they didn't know if he was for sure a male or a female, but they assumed he was a male based on what he was wearing, which was blue Levi work shirt with snap buttons, a gray t-shirt, blue jeans, gray wool socks, and brown imitation wallaby shoes. So due to his wardrobe, the investigators believed that he may have been a transient, a migrant worker, or something who didn't actually reside in Alberta. Based on his clothing, he was suspected that he could have been a construction worker, possibly a farm laborer, but they really weren't sure of anything. Due to their belief that he was a transient, not from the area, they formed this theory because he did not match any missing persons report from Alberta from the day he was found on to like the past few years prior to when he was found. So it's likely, they think, that his killer or killers knew the area well and chose the remote location to get rid of the body because they thought that, you know, the farm was abandoned, nobody would be there, at least not for a very, very long time, and they would be correct to assume that. No evidence was found to suggest that he was murdered on the property itself. So they think he was murdered somewhere else, and then just the body was disposed of there.
Right.
So medical examiners sent dental records to over 800 dental practitioners in the Alberta area, even having them published in a Canadian dental magazine and nationwide bulletins, just to get some sort of lead, because they didn't really have anything, but no leads as to who this person was, to even uncovering the identity was formed. So he was laid to rest in an unmarked grave, but his body was exhumed in 1979, and a forensic pathologist named Dr. Clyde Snow from Oklahoma was brought to reconstruct the skull in order to help with identification. Dr. Snow took numerous measurements of his skull bones, and he pretty much put all of this information into a computer program. Again, this is 1979 into the early 80s, which indicated that Sam was likely, again, of Aboriginal heritage, and he was approximately 35 years old. So now they're kind of closing in that window.
Oh, yeah, they're like getting more details.
Yeah, but again, this is approximate. They can't really tell for sure. So DNA samples were taken and facial reconstructions were posted in various newspapers around the country. And then there was also this clay model that was based on the digital reconstruction. And it is the second most terrifying thing that I have ever seen as far as a sculpture or police sketch. It's so chilling. I fucking hate it.
Is it worse than that one picture?
Oh my God. I knew you were going to say that, the fucking Baton Rouge serial killer.
Yes.
I cannot get over it, y'all. Hey guys, if you are not on Patreon, patreon.com/esoteric oddities, if you want to hear our bonus content, it was one of our first episodes.
Like, who drew that? Who drew
I have
that
no
picture?
idea. It is the most horrifying picture of somebody. It was the Baton Rouge serial killer. Absolutely terrifying. This is a close second though, Sarah. I'm going to show you the picture. It's going to be on social media. This is a close second. Something about it is horrifying. It just scares the shit out of me. I mean, like, unfortunate for Sam, but like they didn't have to do him like that. It's terrifying. Right. But again, they were working with like early 80s technology at this point. So despite the sculpture, despite the sketches that were done, despite his dental records being sent out, they really weren't getting anything from that. So over the forthcoming years, there were many theories of who Sam was. Some speculated that he may have been killed as revenge for a heinous crime such as child molestation. This theory comes from the facts that he was sexually mutilated. They think that, you know, in previous murders or previous situations where mutilation had occurred, a lot of the times it was from like a child molester and someone taking vengeance on him.
Right.
Again, this is just a theory. So all of this talk was surrounding this man who was found, but it quickly went cold. Investigators did have 3 theories of who Septic Tank Sam really was. And again, they kind of have to figure out who he was to even start to look into who the killer was. Right. So the first theory was that Sam was really a man named Edward Joseph Arcand. Arcand was a young man who was last seen leaving his Coleman, Alberta residence in his 1969 Ford Falcon station wagon. On June or July 15th, 1975, his vehicle was found abandoned on Highway 40, 50 miles north of where he lived. He stood 5'8". He weighed 139 pounds, and he was 27 years old at the time he was missing. So all of this kind of was like, oh yeah, he could kind of fit that mold. However, when they investigated further, they learned that Arcand had 6 teeth missing, but Septic Tank Sam had all of his teeth. So they were like, well, shit. And this was a theory that they had looked into for a long time. And again, I don't know why they looked into it for so long, because his dental records was one of the most important things when they were looking into this.
Right.
But regardless, their next theory was that the unidentified body belonged to a man named Chanel Daube, who was last seen in Montreal, Quebec on August 10th, 1970. When Daube disappeared, he called his mother that evening to tell her that he would be leaving his home later. His vehicle, a red 1964 Ford, was found 3 days later in a parking lot of a restaurant in Ville Saint Laurent. The vehicle keys were still inside. He was 5'7" and weighed 143 pounds and was 22 years old at the time of his disappearance. Then their third, and pretty much because they couldn't go with the first theory about Arcand because he didn't have his teeth. This was pretty much their second and only other suspicion, was that Sam was really a man named Ernest Robert Pfaff, who was born in 1945. He was a man who went missing from Ontario in 1973.
Oh, shit.
He left his home at approximately 8 p.m. on December 31st, 1973 to purchase a loaf of bread. When he was driving his 1972 Ford Maverick, light blue in color with red pinstripes on the sides, he disappeared. They never found his car, and he stood at 5'7", and he weighed about 170 pounds. Despite their list of possible identities for Septic Tank Sam, they came to a dead end. As of May 2020, the identity of Sam, along with the identity of his killer or killers, is no less a mystery than on the day he was discovered. And that's the story of Septic Tank Sam.
That's just so crazy that they had all these who it could be or who it might be, but they never actually found out who it was.
Yeah, I wonder, because they probably would have had to have some sort of DNA from them to make a definitive answer, but at least they ruled out the one guy who was missing. But yeah, those 2 other men, nobody knows what happened to them. I tried to look deeper because I wanted to make my story a little bit longer because it wasn't that long of a story. I tried to look into both the men, and there's nothing on them or their missing cases. You know, maybe I'm missing something, but there really wasn't anything on any 3 of them.
Where like these people just did it so far ahead where, like, when no one found him, that it was just, like, not too far gone, but, like, they couldn't identify him at this point. I feel like it happened so long ago. Not so long ago, but, like, when the body was found to, like...
Yeah, that
when
it was
dumped, it was just, like, so decomposed that, like...
And they were probably so sure that that quicklime was gonna like help the decomposition. It's honestly like it would be perfect if it did, because it's a body of water. It would have sped up decomposition. It would have been in an abandoned property. Nobody would have any reason to go check a septic tank, you know. So It was kind of,
and all you would basically find was shoes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, or maybe bones. I don't know how that would have worked.
Oh right, yeah.
But yeah, my sources, I got a lot of this stuff from many different places, but unidentified.wiki.org, I got a lot of the stories from each of those folks who have not been found. Morbidology.com and theglobeandmail.com is my sources. So did you end up watching 1922 on Netflix?
I didn't do it yet.
Girl, you have to, because there's the well scene.
Like watching a lot of TV.
Maybe now isn't the best time for anybody's mental health to be watching a movie like that. But if y'all can take it, 1922, I know it was kind of popular when it came out, I think 2017, 2018, but it definitely did not get the recognition it deserved. I thought that movie was fantastic. Had no idea where it was going to go. I literally from start to finish, it's Stephen King, and I just couldn't. And my brother's not into those movies, and he was like, wow, that was fantastic.
Wow.
It's truly one of the best movies I've seen in a very, very long time.
I love that. I'm gonna have to watch.
Yeah, it was good. Sorry, you have a fun fact and a tweet of the week?
Oh my god, I don't.
That's fine. My fun fact is it can take a photon for 40,000 years. Wait, hold on. Did I say that right? 40? Yeah. 40,000 years to travel from the core of the sun to its surface, but only 8 minutes to travel the rest of the way to Earth. I'm sorry. Can you run that by me again? How are we not talking about the sun? Like, that shit's so big.
And it's so crazy.
I hate it. I mean, I love it. Like, thanks for all you do, son. But like, Jesus.
Right.
Literally. It blows my mind. It's just, I can't wrap my head around it. I simply can't. And then my tweet of the week. Oh my God, that's so funny. We were talking about Elon Musk earlier. I think in the depths of my brain, I remembered I did this. Hold on. It's screenshotted on my telephone. Where are you? I take a lot of pictures accidentally.
Me. I always try to like lock my phone, and I'll have like 5 pictures of my lock screen. I'm like,
I do that sometime if I'm on the phone. I'll just like randomly take pictures by accident. All right, so this comes from Elon Musk, and it's a picture of Kylie Jenner when she was pregnant, and it says, do you remember when the video came out? It said, next thing I knew, I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And above it, it says, when you see a guy walk by wearing light up Skechers. So that's the image he posted.
Oh.
And the text he wrote with it is, that's pretty much what happened.
Oh my God,
boy,
stop,
you gonna
sir.
act like you gonna act like you didn't have billions of dollars,
right? And that's like why you're not.
I'm not saying Grimes is a money chaser. Also, I just think it's so random that it's Grimes. Like, I remember I've been listening to Grimes since high school.
Yeah, and she's like, hi, I love Elon.
I never would have thought. I mean, they're
neither.
perfect. They're a match made in weird heaven, but
they are. But it's just like I feel like her smarts don't go with his. Does that make sense? Like, he's like robotics, and she's like other things.
Artistic. Yeah, but I think that's kind of like that might be where the miracle happens. And we'll see how AK-47 is raised, or whatever his name is.
Doesn't Elon have like 5 kids?
Yes.
Well,
we'll
does. See.
They're all set. I'm actually looking at right now. I didn't even notice that I have my Grimes, my vinyls on the floor. I should probably put that on the shelf. And so is my Lil' Kim vinyl. Lil' Kim. Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks for listening. We love you.
I forgot
so
we were
much.
recording. It was just
Me
like
too.
we were on the
we
phone
were just
for a second.
Yeah, same.
I can't. That's where things get dangerous. No talking shit.
Literally.
I'm just kidding. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you want to see photos and details of the episode, go to esotericoddities.com, go under the episodes, and find episode 113. I think we're on. Is that correct? It might be 113.
Yeah.
Wow, look at us. Look at us go. I'm hoping that this comes out in time. If it doesn't come out in time, I apologize. We are recording this the day before it goes out, which I don't think we have ever done before. But I'm hoping it comes out on time. If not, I apologize. But at the same time, life happens.
Mental health first, okay?
Yes. Exactly. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.